So, did you get a windfall recently? You know, a bonus, an inheritance, withdrawing your CPF money. Hey, it could even be a winning lottery ticket. Now, when you get this extra cash, your first instinct is to spend it, right? But if you're not careful and you don't have a plan, that money is not going to last long. Welcome back to the Money Talks podcast. I'm Andrea Heng, and today you are in luck. No pun intended, because we are discussing how to keep your head and your cash when there's much more of it in your bank account. Jason Ang is with me today. He's the person I'm talking to. He's Senior Wealth Advisory Lead at Syfe. Welcome to the podcast, Jason.
Hi, Andrea. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so I have to ask you, because this is a sensitive topic that everyone is very interested in. When was the last time you received a big bout of cash in your bank account? And more importantly, what did you do with it?
Wow, it's it's been very recent actually. In the last 2-3 months.
Oh.
Yes. It actually came from an endowment plan that my mom actually invested for me.
Oh.
Yes. So when it came to me, definitely it was very unexpected.
Oh, did you not know it was coming?
I knew, but the thing with this is it's coming,
Right.
but when the day it comes, you're like, whoa,
Oh,
it's here.
yes, it's here. Okay, so it
Correct.
must have been a nice surprise-ish.
It was.
Okay, so what did you do with the money?
So the thing is, I have personal frameworks that I've put in place for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, the moment the money came in, I was notified of it. The next day, all the money went out to different places that I've allocated.
Wow, you did not even look at it for a whole day, enjoy the
No.
number in your bank account. Okay, so that's important. I think you had a plan, you knew what to do with it. I mean, in your line of work, you have a lot of clients in your line of work, right? When they experience the same thing, do they have the same kind of calm? Do they have a plan, or do they panic and call you, "Hey Jason, what do I do now? What do I do now?"
Yes, well, I'm pretty sure that the first thing that they think about, right, is like what you mentioned. Oh, there's a lot of money in my bank account. What do I do now? And
because I will literally open my bank account and stare at the number for a
yes.
very long time.
I'm sure, and I don't think you're the only one. I think a lot of people are also in the same situation. So first thing I would tell them, right, if I were in their shoes, is pause.
Okay.
Calm down. The money's not going to run away. It's still going to be there 5 minutes later when you check it again. Right? And I think that's important, because a lot of the times, when something unexpected happens, it's a good thing,
Yeah.
right? I think we have to recognize it's a good thing.
Of course, yeah.
But when it's unexpected, then sometimes you tend to behave irrationally. So that's why the pause is there. I think it's important to take a step. Breathe, pause first, don't pounce. That's what I say, right?
Ah, nice.
Right?
That's nice.
Yeah, so pause and then really evaluate. You have a sum of money, things have changed for the better, but you also have to see what else can you do differently with this sum of money.
Okay, so I mentioned a moment ago that you do have a lot of clients, right? Were any of them, by any chance, clients that suddenly came across a whole big bag of money out of nowhere?
So think about it. A windfall event is not just striking the lottery, right?
Sure.
Even though most of us associate it with that.
Yeah.
It's also when, let's say, at the end of the year, you have a lump sum bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier in my situation, an endowment plan that has
Yeah.
come to fruition, to maturity, right? It could also be in terms of, say, inheritance or even property sales, right? And I think property sales these days are very common to hear of a windfall sum, right?
Yeah.
So it's very common. In fact, I know studies that have said 1 in 2 Singaporeans do expect inheritance, and out of that 1 in 2, 20% of them actually expect the inheritance to be more than $1 million.
Wow.
Which is a large sum of money, exactly.
Who are these people? I must be best friends with them.
You can try. 1 in 5, right? 20%. So
I'm sure
try
I can
and
find someone in that circle.
I'm sure.
Okay, so we often hear horror stories of things gone wrong, right? Like you said, we pounce before we pause,
Yes.
to take your
Yes.
phrase and turn it around, right? You hear of people suddenly going broke very quickly when they have this windfall in their hands within a few years, I'm saying.
Yes.
Why is it so hard to handle sudden wealth. I mean, can you perhaps explain the psychology behind why we tend to, get overly excited like I just did with, oh, you see this 5-figure sum, 6-7-figure sum in your bank account and you're like, oh, and then you just freeze. You almost freeze and don't know what to do and you get very, very excited, right? So can you give us an understanding perhaps of why people just can't handle sudden wealth that way?
There's a term for it, right? Sudden wealth syndrome, where there is a sudden wealth onset,
Right.
and it causes extreme stress and distress.
Oh, there's actually a term for it. Wow.
Yes,
okay.
yes, correct. So a lot of lottery winners, they've actually done studies on lottery winners, and they realized that a lot of them, because of this sudden wealth syndrome, they don't know how to handle the wealth, right? And they tend to overspend, they tend to underestimate certain expenses, and overestimate their decision making. And because of that, they end up at a worse place than they first started.
Yeah, because I think it gives you that false sense of security, right? Oh, I
Correct.
have this amount of money. I'm set for life.
Exactly, correct. But if you think about it, let's say you are in your 50s, right?
Yeah.
Now life expectancy is much longer.
That's right.
So $1 million, although it does sound like a huge sum of money, is actually not in reality.
Yeah, I agree there. And we're often reminded of just how much more costs are going up.
Yes.
They've already come up quite a lot and they're going up even more and they're expected to go up more. So that 1 million, you need to learn how to stretch it out over the course of, you're talking about 20, 30, even 40 years
Correct.
if you have a long life, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
and with the medical advancements, you probably can lead a long life. So
Yes.
apart from, I guess, overspending too quickly and getting all excited with this sudden wealth syndrome, right? What are some of the common mistakes people tend to do when they do have a sudden wealth syndrome or when they come across a big bout of cash and they, just get very excited about it? What are some of those mistakes?
I think it draws back to my earlier point where, because we are not, in a sense, equipped to handle such large sums of money, we tend to be very emotional about it.
Okay.
So as you mentioned earlier, right, the idea of, underestimating some of the expenses. Give, for example, buying a car in Singapore. We all know that it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
But we always look at the headline figure, which is the cost of the car and COE, and that's about it, right? But what we always underestimate is the miscellaneous fees that comes along with it.
Oh, the petrol,
Exactly,
ERP.
Exactly, correct. And then if you're parking in, let's say, the CBD area, there's extra $200-$300 a month, and that easily adds up. So individually, even though the components may not sound like huge sums of money, but if you put them together, they stack up and they actually do take up much more than what you initially expected.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the problems that, as younger millennials or Gen Zs even face, this ability to handle wealth.
Let's paint a scenario for you now.
Sure.
Let's say I have just received a substantial sum, and I kind of did.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. What's the very first thing I should do? So I have a financial advisor myself, and
okay.
she's given me her advice. But I want to hear from you. What should I first do? The very first thing I should do.
I think there are a few, checklist boxes that I can think off the top of my head.
Okay.
First of which is your fundamentals, right? Have your insurance been settled?
Okay.
Your emergency funds, have they been set aside? Any high interest debt that you still have? Yes, correct. High interest debt in Singapore, although we don't hear about it so much, but credit card debts, I think right now on average, annualized, they're charging around 25 to 30% per annum, which is very high.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have one and you pay it off early, that's easily 25% per annum set.
That's a lot,
It is. In fact, it is one. I've not heard of any consistent investments that have paid off such high amounts. Right?
Yeah.
Correct. So
Yeah.
fundamentals, set it aside first.
Okay.
And then the next step that in terms of the checklist again is to see where you are at right now.
Yeah.
Right. And then you evaluate where is it that you want to go?
Okay.
Then that's where you are able to recognize that, okay, look, this is how much work that is still needed to get to where I want to go. And where I want to go is very personal, right? Different people have different life goals.
Yeah.
Right? Some want to retire early, some want to travel around the world every 2 years. So it's very different, right? So that's where having that sort of mental framework and that checklist kind of helps you to put things in perspective.
Okay.
And that's where I would say like your financial advisor can come into the picture and better give advice.
Okay, yeah, I did the right thing then.
You did.
Okay, but what about, so you talked about where you are in life, and I like that you said that because I'm thinking of those who are, families, young parents, semi-retirees, mid-lifers, mid-career workers, that sort of various age groups, right? Does the approach change as I go through these different stages of life?
It's a very good question, Andrea. And yes, definitely the approach change. What I tend to do for my clients is to actually have a 3-bucket strategy.
Okay.
Right? And in these 3 buckets itself, the first bucket, obviously, like what I mentioned earlier, fundamentals, right? Has your emergency savings been set aside? So that's bucket 1, your liquidity reserve.
Okay.
Anytime you run into, say, unexpected situations, you can tap on bucket number 1. So that's emergency savings. Bucket number 2 is more towards, say, short-term goals or passive income use. So this one itself, we put into investments, some of the more passive income-oriented products or portfolios or strategies even, right? So this one itself, we try to build towards a short-term goal. Like, say, one of my clients, she actually has a goal of traveling overseas every year, 2 to 3 times.
Okay.
Right? That's what the bucket 2 is for. Short-term
Right.
goals
Okay.
to try and build up towards what are in a sense, the luxury that I so-called term it. Right. The third bucket is more a growth engine, right, where you put investments that are here to stay for the long term, and it essentially builds up your total net worth. Right. So these 3 buckets, they do, in a sense, are flexible. Right, depending on your life stage. So earlier you mentioned, like, say, families with young kids.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do want to grow your nest egg, but at the same time, you also want to have much more in bucket number 1, which is the liquidity.
Yeah, correct.
And bucket number 2, which is more traveling overseas as well.
Yeah.
Right, compared to, say, a young millennial who's no kids, no housing mortgage, and obviously he wants to optimize his growth engine even more.
So if I were to get $1 million today by some sheer stroke of luck, I like shopping. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I
Sure.
like shopping. I like eating. I like the good things in life.
Sure.
Can I just take a fraction of that $1 million? Go have a nice piece of steak. Go and buy a branded bag. Just to like mark this milestone. Ooh, I was a millionaire at one point. This is my symbol of that. Would you advise that? I mean, is that advisable? Is that something you would condone?
But I won't use the word condone.
Yeah, maybe not condone.
Yes, ultimately it is your money, right? I think that's something that I always tell my clients. Like, look, this is your money, and also this is your life, right? You have your personal goals, your personal desires and needs and wants, right? So I would definitely say again, when you come into a sudden lump sum,
Yeah.
pause. Right, because you don't want to be in a situation where
I paused already. Then I think, okay,
Correct.
I thought I want to go out and have that meal lah.
Yes, correct. So you pause, you have that framework, and that framework, my personal inclination is always to set aside money that you can spend, right, but not excessively. So what that could look like in terms of this framework itself could be, say, $1 million. You put aside maybe, say, 5 to 10% for your own personal luxury need.
Okay.
If you can call it that way, right?
Sure,
And that includes like shopping for your
Okay
branded
lah, maybe
bags.
not shopping lah. I have a niece now, so some of it will go to her maybe.
Are you sure?
I'm a very generous auntie, okay?
Okay.
She's my only niece. But I get what you mean. So I think that's a good gauge. 5 to
Yep.
10%. It's an allowance almost,
Correct,
right? That you
correct.
get to spend on yourself or whatever you want.
Correct. And indulgence.
Yeah. Indulgence is a good word. Indulgence is a good
Correct.
word.
Yes.
So, another group, age group that I'm thinking about when it comes to sudden windfalls are your 55-year-olds and slightly older, right? And
Yep.
I'm talking about CPF because at 55 you get to withdraw your surplus.
Yep.
among other things, and then you get to sort of make a financial decision there and then what to do with what's in your CPF, how much you want to take out,
Yep.
etc. Right? That's the whole shenanigans. When we turn 55, what can we do when we're given the option to withdraw that surplus amount? Let's tackle that first.
That's a good question, right? Andrea, I think investing is not difficult. Investing is simple, right? But it's not easy, right? And that's where I see a lot of clients fail, right? Because when they come with a lump sum and they put their own personal experiences to it, right? That's where I do see a huge gap. Because a lot of the times when they put their own experiences to it, they realize that it doesn't work out in the long term. And that's where I think, again, having that framework sets you up for a long, in a sense, a long lifetime. Once you have that framework, lump sum comes in, automatically you know where to put it, right? It could be into, say, like what I mentioned earlier, the passive income strategies, right? That sets you up for life, essentially. Right. And you have the bandwidth then to think about, like, okay, now that my daily expenses is settled, what else do I want to plan for? Do I want to plan for, say, legacy planning? How much should I set aside for my children, maybe even grandchildren? How much do I want to set aside for myself and my partner, perhaps, to, say, travel over the world? I have clients who actually came to me and said, like, hey, Jason, part of my retirement goals is actually setting aside a lump sum of money for philanthropy purposes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's right. So he is personally involved in overseas mission work, and he actually sets aside lump sums each year.
Right.
And he actually, in a sense, he sets it as his first priority.
Right. So you must, I think the takeaway I'm getting from you here, Jason, is that you must be clear what your priorities are.
Correct.
Because then no matter how much money you're getting at any given point in time in your life,
Yes.
you can always go back to what are my priorities. I apply the same rules to that
Correct.
money, right?
Yes, correct.
So you talked about investing earlier. I know I'll touch a bit on that. Let's get into the specifics, right?
Sure.
How would you advise someone with a sudden windfall invest that money? So you talked about the framework a lot, I understand. So when it comes to bucket number 3,
The growth part.
the growth part, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about bucket number 3 now and what I do with the windfall that goes into that bucket, right? How do I invest that money? What do I look at here?
Yes. I would say the first thing you do is strategy. Right? Strategy overlays every single component of the portfolio. What I try to, suggest to my clients is, let's get the top level strategy right first, right? That could be, again, in terms of, say, risk profile, in terms of, say, time horizons. Obviously, fees are included in part of this process. Fees are very important, in fact, right? So that's part of the growth engine itself. And then beyond that, what we try to do is also to incorporate some of the client's personal beliefs. Are there any sector specific? Are there any theme specific that you are very much aligned with, right? And this could be like, say, a particular sector like ESG, clean energy. I think that's something that has come up a lot in the younger generation.
So what you're
especially.
saying is find your core and make sure that core is sound. Because then you don't have any distractions. But then also allow yourself to invest in something that you firmly believe in so that it fulfills your own personal beliefs in something.
Correct. So a core satellite approach in that case, where core kind of helps you to, stay focused on the bigger picture, and then the satellite portions help you to explore some of these other aspects.
Okay. Surely there are some downsides to suddenly coming into a windfall, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about that. What risks am I walking into when I have this sudden wealth, apart from falling victim to sudden wealth syndrome and making the wrong financial decisions? Apart from that, right, are there any technical risks, financial risks that I might be setting myself up for? Fees to be paid, stuff like that, penalties or anything like that?
Well, I would say that, when we talk about fees, generally in today's context, most of the fees are percentage-based, right? So I don't think it's a matter of, just because you have $1 million, you have to pay a higher fee in terms of a percentage-wise. In fact, I think the opposite is true, right? Where you have more wealth, generally you pay lower percentage fees. So I think that's one thing. Generally, with a lump sum or a windfall event, we tend to be actually very happy, right? And I think for clients as well, even though they may be very worried, oh, Jason, I don't know how to handle this money. But generally what I try to do is to say to them, like, look, you have much more financial resources right now, right? A windfall is definitely a very, very positive thing. So now that you have much more financial resources, right, let's see how we can go about this. And of course, the framework comes into place.
Yeah.
But I think the other part is also having that the right people in your corner, right? I can't stress enough how many times I've heard of clients, coming to me and saying, Jason, I heard from my friend, I heard from my family, this person has this lobang,
Yeah.
very, very good returns. And to me, that's not the right people in your corner, right? You want people who have expertise, knowledge, expertise in a certain field, who are in your corner, who are looking out for your interests. The analogy that I keep coming back to is, think of yourself as the leader of a small army. Right?
Okay.
And this army is essentially your money, right?
Oh,
Each
right,
dollar is like a soldier working for you, right?
Yeah.
And in this army itself, of course, you want to have a small trusted team of generals to help you manage your army better, to optimize it essentially. So these are the generals that I would say to have in your corner. And typically, in the finance line, since we are talking about this, typically you are looking at advisors who are perhaps say non-commission based.
Okay.
They are aligned to your interests, right? And they are also able to explain things very clearly and to also include you in the thought process as well.
Okay. Thanks for that advice. Now that we've come to the topic of people and relationships, right? Sometimes money can get in the way of relationships. I've seen relationships sour over money. I've been in those situations as well.
Oh dear.
So how should we handle requests for loans or investment opportunities, these lobangs that you talked about, right? From friends and word of mouth sort of situations, right? Once the news gets out that, hey, Andrea suddenly won $1 million, or suddenly got this X amount of bonus, So how do we filter out the noise and manage those requests?
I draw back to a conversation that I had the other day, right, with one of my clients, in terms of emotional decisions, right? How do you actually prevent yourself from making emotional decisions? And I was sharing with the client, like, honestly, as humans, we are emotional creatures, right? We're creatures of habits as well. So when it comes to requests from family members especially, right? To give you a very real life example, somebody wants to set up his own business. He knows you very well, you know him very well, and he's asking you for a small loan.
Yeah.
That could happen, right?
Yeah.
It's very real.
Sure.
And so what I tell my client is that, look, there is no foolproof way of eliminating emotional decisions.
Yeah.
Right? You have to accept it. Right? And in fact, what I would say is lean into it. What do I mean? You know that you're emotional, right? You know that you can't say no. So before you even get to that stage, have that framework take out the decision for you. Right? And what I mean is that, give an example. Let's say you have a windfall, right? This percentage goes into investment, this percentage goes into another area, and the 5-10% goes into luxury spending. So this 5-10% into luxury spending, are you okay to forgo spending it on bags, holidays, and instead you lend it to your friend?
Oh.
That's an emotional decision there, right?
Okay.
Or let's say you lend it to your family. Right? So what I try to tell my clients is, look, if I go into this loan, or if I give this money to this friend or this family member itself, then I must be prepared. I may never ever see that sum again. Am I okay with this? Right? And that's where I say, have that framework, protect your finances, right? Ensure that you're set up for life. And then that's where you can, decide whether to go with it or not with your remaining, in a sense, allocations.
I think your advice there is sound. You must be prepared that you may not get that money back. And it's about how much charitability you're willing to extend with that 5-10%.
Correct. And you must always remember, you cannot jeopardize your financial future, because your financial future will also impact your family members, right? Like your parents, your wife, your children even, right? So I think that's something that, I've seen over the course of my work, that some clients, they just don't make the right decision at that point of time, and it actually has very long-lasting consequences.
Yeah, it can be quite damaging in more ways than one, not just financially but emotionally as well.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
so let's cap it off with this final question, Jason. What is one thing listeners, viewers of the Money Talks podcast should keep in mind from this conversation to ensure that, should they ever come across a windfall, be it a bonus, inheritance, etc., that they can make that luxury last? What's your final word of advice there?
I would say first, pause.
Yes.
Right? We've talked a bit about pausing.
I like that. Pause, don't pounce. I think that's really good advice, and it's very simple.
Correct, exactly. And again, investing can be simple, but it's not easy, right? So again, what I think I like to leave the listeners with is this very three simple sentences, right? Like first, pause, right? Don't pounce. Second, right? Investing can be simple, but it's not necessarily easy, right? And it comes to the last sentence, which is always have the right people in your corner. Because once you have these three simple sentences, you're pretty much set in the right direction.
Yeah, and I something else that's quite set is this conversation. I think we've got so much clarity from you today, Jason. It's an eye-opener because
Thank you.
It's quite clear, right, that getting a windfall, yes, it's great, it's positive, it's exciting, but if you really don't have a plan and you don't have a plan to fall back to, you don't have a foundation to fall back on,
Yep.
that money is going to go places you wish it didn't go.
Faster than you think as well.
Exactly. Remember, pause, don't pounce. Thanks so much, Jason, for bringing so much clarity on the podcast. I'm sure a lot of people with future windfalls will remember the advice you gave today.
Pleasure, Andrea. And again, it's very great to be here.
No,
Any day you talk about money, it's a good day.
Absolutely, because money makes the world go round. And you know what? I think it's always good to have people like you in the hot seat. So thanks for braving it
No worries.
for
My
us.
pleasure.
And to you as well, our Money Talks community, thank you for tuning in as always. Now, so we've talked about in this episode the discipline required to manage a fortune. Remember the framework, the buckets, pausing, leaning into the emotional decision, but not being too emotional when making that final cut. Deciding how much you can be emotional with that money is the takeaway I got. So now I want to ask you this question. If you unexpectedly received $50,000 today, what would you do? How would you split it between spending, saving, investing? The three buckets, the same three buckets that Jason talked about. I am very genuinely capo. I'm looking for ideas to inspire me with my windfall. So what would you do? How would you split it? How would you split $50,000 between spending, saving, and investing? Let us know by emailing us or commenting us wherever you're listening to us from. The email, by the way, is cnapodcasts@mediacorp.com.sg. I'm Andrea Heng, signing off for the Money Talks podcast.